Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief since we debated this bill at some length in May before it was pulled from the record for parliamentary reasons. The bill before us today provides that the state will convey Shabbona Lake and State Park to the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, subject to a land management agreement. Just a quick reminder, this issue began 195 years ago with the Second Treaty of Prairie du Chien in 1829. The U.S. government set aside 2 sections of land for Chief Shabbona in what's now DeKalb County. Over the years, the United States changed almost every part of that treaty as it displaced Indian tribes west of the Mississippi River, but it purposely left intact the 2 parcels for Chief Shabbona in recognition of the work that he did for peace in the area. He lived there for many years with his family. Decades later, in the 1840s, the chief went to Kansas to visit his relatives down there who had been displaced to reservation land. He came back a few years later in 1850 and discovered that his home had been removed and the land had been sold in violation of U.S. treaty obligation. The Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation has been trying to reverse that illegal sale ever since. Starting in the 1960s, the state used federal conservation dollars to acquire land in and around this area. The state built a dam, they created a lake and a state park in the area. The park today is roughly the size of the 2 parcels that were promised to the tribe in 1829. So the nation has agreed to relinquish its claim on the treaty land through an act of Congress in exchange for acquiring the park from the state. That's the synopsis. I want to make a few points before we start, and these are things you're going to hear me say over and over again in this debate, but I want to start with them now so they're not news to anybody. First of all, in the bill, the land transfer is contingent on a land management agreement between DNR and the nation that will keep the park a park, and it will keep the park open to the public. If there's no agreement, there's no transfer. So the land does not get transferred with the passage of this bill. It is pending a land management agreement to keep the park a park. There's been a lot of talk in this room and in this building about casinos. We'll get into this in tremendous depth, but I want to be very clear. The nation has no desire nor intent to build a casino. It would be against state and federal law for them to build a casino, and I have committed to working with legislators in this body on a trailer bill in the spring before the land transfer happens to clarify that there will not be new gaming on this land. A couple of other points. Some amateur historians have suggested that Chief Shabbona once tried to sell this land. That claim is a little dubious, but even if it were true, there's a law called the Indian Non-Intercourse Act that says that Indian land can't be sold without an act of Congress. So whatever scrap of paper someone might have dug up from the 1840s does not supersede acts of Congress. And this brings me to my final point. The federal government has recognized the validity of the Potawatomi's claim to this land for decades under multiple federal administrations, Republican and Democrat, including as recently as 2024 when a portion of this land was placed into reservation. This land is legally theirs. And the tribe, they could have gone to the courts to resolve this, but instead they came to us to work out an arrangement. It's a fair deal. It's supported by the local elected officials, the village president, the village board of the village of Shabbona. The DeKalb County Economic Development Council is eager to see this done. The area's Republican state senator spoke on the floor in favor of this bill. This bill passed the Senate 49-7. It passed the Senate 49-7. And I urge us to find that same spirit of bipartisanship here today, and I ask for an aye vote.
On this question, Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Rule 68, I would like to move that Senate Bill 867 be recommitted to the Executive Committee on the basis that during its initial truck through the Executive Committee, none of the property owners were allowed to come and testify. They have since hired a lobbyist, and I think when we talk about an issue that's this big, it would be in the best interest of the people of Illinois to have the lobbyist be able to testify. I move for recommit, and I would like a record vote on the motion.
Representative Fritz, we will get back with you. Would you like to proceed, or do you want us to stand at ease until we have the answer?
I would like to stand at ease, please.
Representative Fritz, we would ask for a motion in writing. In the meantime, we'll go to, we'll get back to you. In the meantime, we'll go to Representative Vella.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield for a question?
He indicates a yield.
All right. The expansion of gaming in the state of Illinois has been a great revenue generator, and I know you have said that there will not be any gaming on this land.
Should we talk about it? Let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
Please.
Right. Good. Can you commit on the floor here that there will not be any gaming, including casinos, bingo parlor, poker room, any gaming on this land?
I can. I've spoken to the tribe about this. I want to say something. If you don't mind, I'm going to take a moment to go beyond just a yes here.
Please.
So there's federal law that says that gaming is not permitted on tribal lands unless that tribal nation enters into a compact with the state in which that reservation will be located. Illinois has a law called the Native American Gaming Compact Act that says the governor can't just do these compacts on his own. It requires an act of the General Assembly to ratify that kind of compact. So right now, no matter what happens with this bill, they can't do gaming on the land without an act of the General Assembly. This bill does not enable them to do gaming on the land. They have committed to me, to you, and to the people in this room and in public, they don't want to do gaming on this land. They want this to be a park and for people to come and enjoy the natural beauty of this land. And I am committing to you here in front of all of our colleagues that I will work with you on a trailer bill in the spring to reaffirm their commitment and my commitment that there will not be gaming on this land.
And I want to thank you for setting up the meeting, and it was great to talk to them. And so again, just to clarify, you said we're going to work on a trailer bill next session to make sure there is no gaming or no casino, no any gaming at all on that land.
We will work on that trailer bill together, you and I, next session.
Yes, that'd be great. We'll go out to dinner. It'll be fun.
I look forward to it.
I guess one more question. So
Please.
Let's say they change their mind tomorrow after we pass this bill. Are you? I mean, are we?
Yeah. So it's a good point. The bill does not transfer the land. The bill says the land is only transferred when a land management agreement is reached. And that's not going to happen before spring session is done next year. So we will have a chance to pass this trailer bill before the land transfer is enacted, because that land management agreement is going to take some time.
Good. Thank you very much. I have no more questions.
Thank you, Representative.
Representative Ammons, and then we'll go to Leader Windhorse.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
To the bill.
First, I'd like to commend Leader Guzzardi for consistently working on this issue from last session. I hear the debate and the discussion. Of course, I was stopped along with others about the question of a casino on this land. I'd like to just draw the Assembly's attention back to the point of ownership and sovereignty. In Illinois, of course, Illinois was not a free state as people try to purport. There was slavery in the state of Illinois until after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. But they were also part of the Trail of Tears that was part of southern Illinois that moved the Native American nations out of the region and took their land. And so in doing so, this bill is extraordinarily important, not only restoring the land and the land rights, because that is the only way for economic viability, but also to provide for those who are the real owners of that property and land the opportunity for sovereignty as nations. They have the right to sovereignty, and we should respect that right of sovereignty and not put before them colonial practices that prevent them from doing what they need to do on behalf of the people that represent those nations. So I rise in support of Representative Guzzardi's work and thank him for taking up such an important and crucial issue in the moments that we experience here in the United States. Thank you, Representative Guzzardi, and I move for an aye vote on this measure.
Leader Windhorse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Point of order. House Rule 55 provides, under House Rule 55C, a motion to commit or recommit until it is decided precludes all amendments and debate on the main question. I believe debate is not in order until we decide the motion to recommit.
We're waiting on the parliamentarian. Leader Windhorse, under Rule 54A1, the presiding officer, which would be the speaker at the time, can require that the motion be in writing. We have not received that motion. Therefore, House Rule 55C does not apply. We'll return to Representative Fritz. Representative Reich. Representative Reich.
Mr. Speaker, it appears that developments are occurring in the back part of the room here that I would like to defer my comments until you have a chance to further investigate what is going on at the back of the room, please.
We have ruled. We've already ruled.
I'm sorry, what?
We have ruled that there's no motion, as the motion has not been filed in writing, therefore there's no motion before us, so we can proceed.
All right, well, I'll waste your time while we're doing this. One thing that we talked about, to the bill. One thing we talked about during our discussions in the spring is the simple fact that there are like 38 landowners, homeowners, people who have bought property in good faith who reside within the boundaries of this particular proposed transfer, and their titles are at risk because the federal government, through all the machinations, the transfers back, the transfers from the federal government to the tribe, abandonment as ruled by the federal government, the state of Illinois has never been a party to a contract with the federal government to take title to the land. That being the case, there is a cloud on title to at least the 38 parcels of property that sit within this boundary that if the time comes when any of these people decide they want to sell their properties to anybody but the Potawatomi Band of Nation, which is going to drive down their real estate values, they're not going to be able to do it because of this cloud of title that exists within the federal government. The answer to the issue of whether or not this property can be transferred under this scenario rests with the federal government, because the federal government at this point still holds a colorable pretext of title on at least the property that is owned by the 38 landowners or occupied by the 38 landowners who are not part of this of what's going to become the park, but are nonetheless within it. So I would say that no matter what we do here, the state of Illinois does not have the legal authority to transfer this property because it never entered into any kind of an agreement with the federal government to transfer this property back to the state of Illinois. If what we're doing is saying these folks deserve it because of years of whatever happened to them and Chief Shabbona being a great guy and all that kind of stuff, let's do it the right way. Let's get our federal representatives involved in making this clear that the federal government's claim of title, as unlikely as it may be, is still a claim on title that could color the value of these properties because it limits the ability of these people to sell their properties when the time comes. Can I have 3 more minutes? Yeah, I need...
Representative Haas gives you 3 minutes.
Thank you, Representative Haas. If we're going to do this, and I have no dog in this fight, I've gone... Will, have you gone fishing at Shabbona? Sorry, you've never been there. Okay. The simple fact is that if we're going to do this, and again, I don't have a dog in this fight, But the simple fact is, if we're going to do this, we have to do it according to the way the law provides. And the law at this point is one where the federal government has an interest in this property for its failure to properly transfer the property to the state of Illinois, which they're using as an excuse to give this property to the Potawatomi Nation of Indians. So if we're going to do it, I don't have a problem with it. I'll help you work with it, Will. But this is not the way to do it. There's a federal lien on this property, and it ain't going nowhere with this bill. Vote no.
The chair has received a motion to recommit Senate Bill 867 to the Executive Committee pursuant to Rule 68. We're in receipt of it. We're handing it to the clerk, and it shall be referred to rules. Representative Fritz seeks recognition. Leader Windhorse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
At your parliamentary inquiry.
When is rules scheduled to meet?
To be determined.
Mr. Speaker, point of order. The rules clearly envision a motion to commit or recommit to be heard during debate and not to be referred to rules during debate. The motion has been filed. Debate cannot proceed until that motion has been decided. It may be referred to rules, but then this bill needs to be pulled from the board until rules meets and disposes of the motion.
The chair has ruled.
I appeal the ruling of the chair that the motion should be sent to the Rules Committee.
Leader Windhorse has asked that the chair be overruled. The question is, shall the chair be sustained? All those in favor of sustaining the chair, vote yes. All those opposed, vote no. The voting is open. On this motion, Ms. Clerk, please take the record. On this motion, there are 69 voting yes, 38 voting no, and the chair is sustained. Representative Fritz on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he'll yield.
Thank you. Representative Guzzardi, we meet again on this issue and look forward to having some lively debate. Let's start from the beginning again as we talk about this. Where is this park located?
It's in DeKalb County. I had the pleasure of visiting it just last month, actually.
You were?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
were at the park?
I was, yeah. I went to Shabbona Cafe in the village of Shabbona. They actually have a lovely little postcard with your face on it in the front, the bulletin board in the front of the cafe.
So you would say that people in the village of Shabbona like me?
I would say they like this bill.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Very interesting. So if you were in my district,
I was.
being a part of this, and you're looking to run a bill that directly affects the constituents of my district, it's pretty unbelievable. I can look back at my phone records, but I don't believe I had a call or a text from you to meet out there or discuss this issue at all since the last time that we debated this on the floor.
Representative, as you know, the tribal nation has done extensive outreach with you over the course of years. I know that you visited their reservation in Mayetta, Kansas. They flew you down for the powwow. They worked closely with your predecessor on this issue, who is a big supporter of this bill. I think that we have a fundamental difference of opinion about the right course forward here. So
because you think we have a fundamental disagreement, you don't even want to have any conversations about it on our home turf? You don't want to let me take you out and introduce you to constituents who are directly affected by this?
Representative, I appreciate that, and I would simply say that we've attempted to engage you in productive discussions about this issue. The nation has over the course of years, and I think we've reached an impasse, which is why we're here today.
Interesting. It seems like that's your name up there sponsoring this bill. The nation can do whatever
I
they
know
want.
they wish it would have been yours.
You haven't directly reached out to me.
Yeah, they wish it would have been your name on that bill, Representative.
I wish it would too, because it wouldn't be nearly as horrendous as it is right now. All right, so let's just back up to the beginning here. We had in that agreement 195 years ago, there were 2 sections given that were a total of how many acres?
1,280 acres.
1,280 acres. Awesome. And you say that that land was stolen, correct?
It was sold illegally, yes.
It was sold illegally.
Yes.
Who sold it illegally?
The land agents of the U.S. government.
Land agents of the U.S. government. Very interesting, Representative, because I hold right here in my hand, a deed out of a library, one of our state libraries here in Chicago, of 640 acres, one of those 2 parcels that was sold by Shabbona to the Gates family of Lee County, and for 1,200 acres for $1,200 back in the 1800s. So if you say that the federal land agents illegally sold this bill, this is directly opposing what you're saying, because if anybody illegally sold, it looks like Shabbona himself illegally sold, correct?
You're aware of the Indian Non-Intercourse Act, Representative? Do you want to tell the body about what that act does?
You go ahead.
Oh, I'd be happy to.
You seem to be so familiar with it. Go ahead.
I am quite familiar with it because it has direct bearing on the question that you just asked.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for you and the rest of the body to be familiar with it as well. It's
Please.
actually one of the first laws that the United States ever passed. It was passed in Congress in 1790, just a year after the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. And it says that what's called Indian land in the law can't be sold without an act of Congress. So no sale of this land, no matter who might have their name on whatever piece of paper, no sale or transfer of this land is legal without
Representative Weaver.
But you are
gives 3 minutes.
You are stating that U.S. government agents illegally sold this land when right here, in writing, there is stating that Shabbona himself tried to sell this land. So what we're talking about here is the fact that, you know, you could say that that's in violation of the Interstate Act, but he sold it. Was it wrong of the federal government to uphold this sale? Absolutely it is. But here we are, 195 years later, with multiple sales of this land forever, and now you want to give an entire park back to him. It's absolutely outrageous. All right, let's just talk hypothetically with your bill here for a minute. If given back, what is their intention with said land?
Well, I can speak to their intention and also to what's in the statute before the bill before us, which is that the land won't be transferred until the nation enters into a land management agreement with DNR that will keep the land a park, operated by DNR and open to the public. And the nation has committed publicly, repeatedly, and I will commit here on their behalf today, that they want to keep the park a park and they want to keep it open to the public.
Well, Representative Guzzardi, I think that's unbelievable sentiment, but I think actions speak louder than words. You know, you talk about wanting to keep land open to the public and how they're going to be such good neighbors on this, but do you know what picture I'm holding up right now?
It's very difficult for me to see from this distance,
okay.
Representative.
Well, I'll explain it what it is. The tribe owns land right now. And on that land, there are 2 signs with a post pounded right in front. I took this picture myself. It says, no trespassing without written permission, federal tribal land, Prairie Band Potawatomi Tribal Council.
So that land is not
I think it's
state
very
parkland,
interesting.
Representative. You're aware, you know that. That's not the state park, and that's not the land that this bill is about.
Yeah, but once it becomes their land, they can do whatever the heck they want to do with it, Will. All right, it was brought up earlier on the interest of gaming. You said it is not their intention to build a casino, correct?
I said that not only is it not their intention, but it would be in violation of federal law for them to build a casino without conforming state compact.
See, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that the only way that financial backers, banks, typically when you open a casino facility like that, they require that you be in a compact. But if you come up with the resources on your own, it's your land. You don't have any jurisdiction over that.
That's incorrect, Representative. The Johnson Act is federal. Are you familiar with the Johnson Act, Representative? I would encourage you to familiarize yourself with it before you bring this topic before the body. The Johnson Act prohibits gaming on tribal reservations, and there's an exception to the Johnson Act in the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act that says that gaming may be enacted pursuant to a compact with the state. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a law that says that compact can only be entered with agreement both of the governor and of the General Assembly.
Representative Moore gives you 3 minutes.
What's to stop them from creating that compact in the future?
Well, there's state law that says that compact can only be agreed with an act of the governor and agreed to by the General Assembly as well. So even should this bill pass today, and even if it turns out that the tribal nation was somehow lying, and it turns out that they had some desire to build a casino, which they don't, and I just can't reiterate that enough. They have said so many times publicly over and over that their intent is not to build a casino on this land.
They can say that all they want, Will, but...
And it's backed up by federal and state law that prohibits them from doing so, Representative.
But did you not just say to one of our colleagues earlier that you plan on running trailer legislation with regards to this?
I am happy to run additional legislation clarifying existing law that prohibits them from building a casino on this land without an act of the General Assembly.
And that is great. Why don't we do it right now before we pass it out of this body?
Well, Representative, as you're aware, legislation needs to be read in separate chambers on 3 days. We don't have enough time to do that today. But as I mentioned, the land transfer won't take effect until a land management agreement has been entered into. And that agreement will not be entered into.
What's our hurry? You have 78 members. What is
yes,
our
Representative,
hurry?
and those members will vote for this bill, and I wish your members would too.
You want to run this down over the tops of my constituents, my landowners who are worried about the future of this, so much so that you're even willing to go and run a trailer bill on it, but you're not willing to take a step back, let the next General Assembly get sworn in, and take this issue up in the future. It is absolutely unbelievable. Mr. Speaker, to the bill.
To the bill.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, this is, above all, it is a federal issue. The federal government screwed up here. The federal government has an obligation to fix it. We here in the General Assembly should not give a $15 million taxpayer asset away in order to right what they feel is a potential injustice that I don't even know is an injustice to begin with if you actually look at the paperwork. But it is not the Illinois taxpayers' responsibility. My 30 property owners, their titles are still wide open on this, and they can say all day long, you know, right now we're going to go ahead and cede that property, and instead we'll take the state park. What's to say another 195 years from now they don't come back to this exact legislation that we're talking about and try to grab that property again? My constituents aren't protected. It's absolutely unbelievable. The bottom line here is that Shabbona sold this land illegally. Any solutions need to come from the feds. This solution that is before us today, it cheats taxpayers, does not clear the title of my homeowners, and it is absolutely so sad that we aren't going to let the people who this directly affects, my constituents with whom I represent, have a seat at the table here. It is so unfortunate, and Mr. Speaker, I ask for a verification.
The verification request is recognized. Leader Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the bill.
To the bill.
We have reached a whole new low in this chamber. I never would have thought that it was possible, but obviously it is possible. On the last day of lame duck, where we haven't done anything of any import to this point, we have a bill that directly impacts the district of one of our very own colleagues. There has been zero conversation. There has been zero negotiation. There has been zero respect for the representative that represents the area that is being debated right now. The taxpayers of this area have been loud and clear. They are adamantly opposed to this action. This is not for us as Illinois representatives to be deciding. This is a federal government issue. I know we love to pretend that we are congressmen and women, and we're not. And we need to butt out. Ladies and gentlemen, vote no.
On this question, Representative Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
In a case of yield.
Ever since I've been here, we've been told or instructed to vote your district. Mr. Gazzardi, is this in your district?
No, it's not, Representative.
Well, this affects businesses in my community and other representatives' community. You talk about this compact like there's some law that says that they have to abide by this compact. I'm very well aware of what the law is, okay? Let me just state what the law says. If the tribe and the state have not agreed on the compact to you says that they're going to agree to. But if they don't. So say we're in negotiations and we want them to pay some kind of taxes, which they don't pay any taxes, while we're paying hundreds of millions of dollars of taxes to the state across all the board of all the casinos. They don't have to pay a dime. So it says if they can't agree on a compact in negotiations with the governor, the state house, and them, after 180 days of negotiations, the tribe may file a lawsuit in federal district court claiming that the state has failed to negotiate in good faith. While there is good faith requirement placed on states that are negotiating a compact, the tribes are under no legal obligation to negotiate in good faith. They're a sovereign nation. They can do whatever they want. So I'm asking you, while you state that they don't want to build anything, while out there they say that they're going to put a building on there and they want some games. They can play bingo. They can have slot machines that your president play bingo, even though they say they're not. But every Indian organization I know wants gaming. So you say that you're going to file a trailer bill, but how are you, if they change their administration and they change their mind, how are you going to prevent that from happening?
Representative, thank you for the question. The plain language of the Johnson Act and the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, which I have in front of me, I think what you're reading is like a legal interpretation from an attorney who has a vested interest in this issue.
That's not true.
Oh, can you tell me where that,
I already sent it you and I gave it to you. You know that.
Yeah, I maybe misunderstood you. I thought you said you'd received that interpretation from an attorney. I apologize. I didn't mean to misrepresent that. I'm looking at the language of the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act right now, and it's the plain language of the statute. And from our consultation with lawyers, there's never been a casino opened in the country without a compact with the state. The tribe does not want to build a casino on this land, and even if they did, or even if leadership changed, the governor and the General Assembly would have to approve it, or else it would be in violation of federal law.
Okay, I want this on the record, and that's why I'm speaking, Representative.
Thank you,
That if
Representative.
there is no agreement on a compact, that they can go to federal law and do what they want. They're a sovereign nation. So just wait. I want you to know, I know what you're saying. You're operating in good faith, and I'm operating in good faith. I just want to make sure that this General Assembly knows that they can do whatever they want because they're a sovereign nation. They can go to court, and they can, if we don't agree on a compact, after 180 days, they can go to federal court and do what they want. That's all I want on the record, and I want you to acknowledge it. That's all.
I acknowledge it. Thank you very much for your comments, Representative.
Representative DeLuca gives you
Thank
3
you.
minutes.
I'm good.
Are you finished? Thank you. Representative Rosenthal
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
indicates a yield.
So, Representative, do you not agree that this is more a federal issue than a state issue?
I would say that both factors are at play, and I would acknowledge what folks have said earlier and what I led my remarks with, that the only way for the nation to relinquish its ownership of this land is through an act of Congress. So that's I think, indisputed fact. Now, what the nation has agreed to, and the reason they're here with us today and not litigating this issue, is because they've agreed to enter into a negotiation with us, where they've said, we will work with our U.S. Senator from Kansas, who's a big advocate of this issue. We'll work with legislators at the federal level to remove our federal title if we get this park transferred to us in lieu of that federal claim. So what that will do, in doing that, will lift the clouded title that my esteemed colleague from McHenry County mentioned earlier. It will make those homeowners secure in the ownership of their homes. This is good for those homeowners. There's a reason why why the village president supports this bill, why the village board supports this bill, why the local community supports this bill, because it's good for the community.
Have you contacted Senator Durbin on this issue?
I've not spoken with him directly. I don't have his number like that, but I know that he has been spoken to.
How about Senator Duckworth or Representative Lauren Underwood?
I know that the tribal nation has worked closely with their federal representatives here and in Kansas, and I know that the federal delegation here in Illinois is very supportive of the tribe's efforts.
So would you not agree, though, that this is a federal responsibility and not a state of Illinois responsibility?
Well, so as I just laid out, Representative, I think that we're going to have a two-pronged solution to this. One is going to be to transfer the parkland to the nation, and in so doing, that will enable the nation to go to Congress and say, we relinquish our claim on the remainder of the land.
And so you think that the taxpayers and the people of Illinois ought to bail out the federal government?
No, sir.
Well, that's exactly what's happening.
Well, it's important to know
that is what is happening if you're transferring that park.
May I answer your question? Because I think it's an important one. The land that we're talking about was actually purchased with federal dollars. You may know this from your days over at the agency. The land was purchased with federal conservation funds. So there's not a dime of Illinois taxpayer money caught up here. This is federal dollars that the state used to buy the land and create the park.
If that's the case, then the feds ought to give it back to them, not the state of Illinois.
The federal government doesn't have jurisdiction to do so. We do, and that's why we're engaging in this bill today, Representative.
It's federal dollars. You just said that yourself.
They were given to the state to purchase the land to create a state park. So as often happens, the federal government gives money to the state of Illinois to do various activities as a state government.
This is an issue that was caused by the federal government, and it ought to be resolved by the federal government.
Leader Kiker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
He indicates he'll yield.
Representative, I appreciate your passion on this. I appreciate the work that Representative Walker, now Senator Walker, done on this prior. I think we can all agree, as we've heard the debate on this up to this point in time, that there are many and varied issues that deal with the federal government and their relation. As I understand it, the federal government and the grant that we were awarded in part to purchase this parcel to make it a park, and restrictions that may exist as a result of us then retransferring the park. We have shaded titles. We have concerns with the contract holders who have operations and a long-term contract for facilities within the park. We have the intergovernmental agreements that we have to worry about police, fire, ambulance, security, water, all these sorts of services. And now we have a question that, as I understand it, has existed for decades on this clouded land transfer, the method, manner, and actual participants in what land was transferred, when, by whom. What I would really ask of you today, and I think the icing on the top is to what the leader pointed out earlier. This is something that's outside of your district, and there's kind of an unwritten code about that. What I would ask is this. It's the end of session. This has been going on for 150 years. What if we were to put together a task force, have these issues sat down in an open venue and sorted through so that, one, we can add a certainty to the tribe of what they want to pursue, but two, we can give certainty to those members of the DeKalb County community who are worried about what that future looks like. There is no urgency to doing this today. So I ask you, can we move this to a task force? I happily be a co-sponsor with you so that these issues can be publicly vetted and everyone has a chance to be at the table.
Thank you so much for the question. I think I disagree with you respectfully about a couple of points. First of all, I really appreciate your questions, and I appreciate the integrity that you bring to this debate. I disagree with a couple of premises. One is that there hasn't been any engagement with the local community. I want to recognize Chairman Zeke Rupnick, who's the elected leader of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. He's here in the gallery today. Chairman, do you mind standing up for just a moment? We'll give you your flowers at the end of this debate. But the chairman lives in Mayetta, Kansas, where his people were displaced to on a reservation there. He told me the other night at dinner, he said, I asked him, how many village board meetings of the village of Shabbona, a 900-person village adjacent to the park, how many board meetings would you say you've been to? He said, probably at least 25. That's 25
Leader
times
Kiker, Leader Davidsmeyer gives you 3 minutes.
25 times the chairman drove 7 hours from Mayetta, Kansas to Shabbona, Illinois, sat with the local community, answered their questions, and drove 7 hours back. This isn't new. It's not as though this issue has not been vetted by the local community.
Representative, I would challenge that these issues would then have more resolution than they do before us today. Well, and especially with the clouded transfer, contract for transfer on the deed, where it was sold.
So that, I think
we owe it to the people.
I want to remind you, Representative, that it has been illegal from the founding of this nation to sell Indian land without an act of Congress. That's one of the oldest laws in America. Indian land is the language that's used in federal legislation. Let me just also say, you said, can't we wait? Why don't we wait just a little bit longer to do this?
I said let's push it so that we can do it in a manner that is respectful to everyone impacted.
I don't believe it's respectful of us to wait a single day longer for justice for these people who had their land illegally sold from them 175 years ago. One more day is wrong. One more day is unjust. It's time to right this wrong, Representative. That's why I'm here at this hour on this day.
Okay, appreciate your passion. To the bill.
To the bill.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are breaking with precedent right here, and I want you to be very attentive to this. We are breaking with precedent of this institution by violating an honor that we have amongst ourselves to allow the representative with which their district is being impacted by a very significant bill that we are considering. All we are asking for is a deferral to the next General Assembly so that we can have a full vetting in a public view and weigh in on all these issues in a manner that's more respectful of all parties, the tribe included, the federal government included, the DeKalb County government included, the local governments, the township governments. They're being left out of the discussion of our transferring of property today, which is also unprecedented. I ask for a no vote today, my peers, not that the issue isn't appropriate to pursue later, but that the manner in which we're pursuing it today is improper. Thank you.
Representative Guzzardi to briefly close.
Thank you, Leader Hoffman. Thank you to the members for the debate today. I will take just a minute with the indulgence of the Speaker and the body. First of all, I really want the entire body to recognize Chairman Rupnick, who I mentioned earlier, the chairman of the Prairie Band Potawatomi, and several members of their elected council who have been down here this week. They've been incredible partners. I told you how many times the chairman's come up to Shabbona. The library in the village of Shabbona, their roof fell in, and the nation donated money to help fix it. The lake flooded. They sent workers and equipment up to the community 7 hours away to help address that flooding. They've been incredible partners to this community, and I would just like us to give them a round of applause and recognize them here. Thank you, members. And listen, the history of our country is amazing. Our democracy, our Constitution, our great leaders, the innovations and wonders that have come out of this nation, it's something to marvel at. And it's also complicated. And there are parts of our history that are downright ugly. And our treatment of the people who lived here before this was America is one of those ugly parts. It is a story of murder and disease and displacement and broken treaties and erased cultures, and it's a bad story. So what do you do if you're like us and you're born into a country with this kind of history? I don't think that the answer is, self-flagellation. Oh, America is terrible. We should be ashamed to be Americans. No, I firmly believe that for all of our problems, America is the greatest country on earth, and I'm proud to be American. But I also don't think that the answer is to turn a blind eye to the violence and the ugliness of our past, to rewrite the history books, to gloss over the unpleasant parts. I think the answer is to look our past square in the eye, the good stuff and the bad stuff. And when we recognize that we've done wrong as a nation, to see it, to own it, and to find some way where we can make it right. And today, right here and now, ladies and gentlemen, we have this rare and unique opportunity to right one small wrong in the history of America. Not to erase any of the harm we've done, but to add one small, indelible mark on the side of the ledger of goodness and decency and justice. This is a vote that you're going to want to go home and tell your kids about. I know I'm going to. As soon as my kiddo is old enough to ask me what I do for work, I'm going to tell him about today. I'm going to tell him that 175 years ago, our ancestors took this beautiful part of our beautiful state from the people who it belonged to, and I helped give it back to him. And I'm going to drive my kid out to this reservation and show him that land. And in that moment, I'm going to be proud of the work we did, and I'll be proud to be an American. So I just urge you to think about how you want to remember today, what you want to tell your families about the role you played in the American story. And I ask you for an aye vote.
Members, Representative Fritz has requested a verification. All members will be in their chairs and vote their own switches. The question is, shall Senate Bill 867 pass? All those in favor vote aye, all opposed vote nay. The voting is open. Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Have all voted who wish? Mr. Clerk, please take the record. On this question, there are 63 voting yes, 41 voting no, 2 voting present. Mr. Clerk, please read the names of the individuals voting in the affirmative.
A poll of those voting in the affirmative. Representative Ammons, Representative Avalar, Representative Blair Sherlock, Representative Buckner, Representative Burke, Representative Canty, Representative Cassidy, Representative Chung, Representative Costa Howard, Representative Crespo, Representative Croak, Representative Will Davis, Representative Delgado, Representative Didich, Representative Dubiclay, Representative Evans, Representative Favor Dias, Representative Ford, Representative Gable, Representative Gon Gershowitz, Representative Gonzalez, Representative Gordon Booth, Representative Grassi, Representative Guerrero Cuellar, Representative Grazardi, Representative Hansen, Representative Barbara Hernandez, Representative Norma Hernandez, Representative Hirschauer, Representative Hoffman, Representative Nguyen, Representative Jimenez, Representative Johnson, Representative Kat Small, Representative Kifowit, Representative Laddish Douglas, Representative
Mr. Clerk,
LaPointe.
Representative Fritz.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, for your indulgence and consideration. I withdraw verification.
Representative Fritz has withdrawn the verification. On this question, there are 63 voting yes, 41 voting no, 2 voting present, and this bill, having received a constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed.